Your reputation is not built by what you say, but by the thoughts you think in silence. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. This is the profound insight of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that teaches our external world is a direct reflection of our internal character. In the next few minutes, you will discover 24 mental habits drawn directly from Stoic practice that can quietly reshape how others see you, moving you from seeking approval to commanding authentic respect. We will uncover how a simple shift in attention can transform a first impression, and why welcoming hardship is the secret to being seen as unshakable. What is the one thought habit you believe most influences how people perceive you? The first moment of any meeting holds a quiet power most of us surrender without a fight. Your reputation begins not with a handshake or an introduction, but in that fragile, initial second where your attention lands. The Stoics called this discipline prosoph, a state of vigilant, mindful presence. It is the foundational practice of paying full attention to the here and now, to the person in front of you. The philosopher Epictetus taught that we must secure our own attention first, because everything else depends on the quality of our first impressions. He was not talking about the impression you make, but the impressions you allow to form in your own mind. When you walk into a room fully present, you are not just observing others, you are actively shaping the interaction from its very source. Consider the difference between entering a conversation while glancing at your phone, your mind cluttered with other concerns, versus walking in with a calm, collected focus that is entirely directed at the people there. The first scenario broadcasts distraction and divided priorities. The second, without a single word spoken, communicates respect and value. This undivided attention is a silent form of respect that people feel instantly. It tells them they matter more than the buzz in your pocket or the chatter in your head. Can you recall a time when someone gave you their complete, focused presence? That feeling of being truly heard and seen, even for a brief moment, is unforgettable. It forges a connection that mere words cannot. This is the silent architecture of a strong reputation, built one moment of genuine attention at a time. How often do we form a solid opinion about someone before they have even finished speaking? That initial, almost instinctive verdict we pass in our minds is the very thing the Stoics identified as the root of our own inner turmoil. It is not the person or their opinion that causes a problem, but our own rushed judgment of them. This is where the second mental habit takes root, the discipline of withholding immediate judgment. It is the practical application of the Stoic virtue of justice, which begins not with punishing others, but with giving them a fair hearing. Seneca put it with his characteristic clarity when he wrote that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen more and talk less. The wisdom in that simple observation is profound. A reputation for fairness and wisdom is not built by having all the right answers, but by resisting the urge to have an answer for everything, especially when that answer is a condemnation. Consider a moment when you hear someone express a view you find deeply disagreeable. The immediate reaction is often to build a case in your mind, to assemble your rebuttal before they have even laid out their full perspective. But what if, in that crucial moment, you chose a different path? What if you silently reminded yourself that your understanding is incomplete and made the conscious choice to listen, not to prepare your attack, but to truly comprehend? This single act of restraint transforms the entire dynamic. Instead of being seen as argumentative or closed off, you become someone who is thoughtful and just. People will start to trust your fairness because they know you will not shoot down their ideas before giving them a chance to breathe. Think of one person in your own life you may have judged a little too quickly. Perhaps a colleague whose working style frustrates you, or a relative whose world you seem so different from your own. What more charitable interpretation of their actions could you entertain? Maybe they are operating from a place of stress you do not see, or from experiences you have not shared. This is not about agreeing with them, but about granting them the basic justice of your patience. By suspending that automatic criticism, you are not just changing your mind about them, you are actively shaping their mind about you, building a reputation as a person of profound fairness. In a crisis, the most reliable person is not the loudest but the calmest. This is the essence of the third mental habit, cultivating emotional equanimity in conflict. The Stoics called this state apatheia, which is not the absence of all feeling, but a profound freedom from the destructive passions that cloud judgment and provoke rash actions. It is the ability to meet any provocation not with a matching emotion, but with a clear and steady mind. Your reputation for reliability is forged in these heated moments. When others are losing their composure, the person who remains calm immediately stands apart. They are seen as an anchor in the storm, someone who can be trusted to think clearly when everything is falling apart. Marcus Aurelius offered a powerful meditation for exactly this scenario. He advised himself that the best way to counter an angry person is to be diligently kind. To meet their passion with a contrary emotion, not by pretending, but by actively choosing a more constructive state of mind. Imagine a high-pressure work situation. A project deadline is missed and a key client is furious. One person on the team immediately reacts with their own panic and frustration, their voice rising, looking for someone to blame. Their reaction adds fuel to the fire, creating more chaos. Another team member takes a slow breath. They acknowledge the problem without flinching. Their tone remains even, and they immediately focus the conversation on solutions. What is the immediate difference in how you perceive these two people? The first seems reactive and adds to the problem. The second projects an aura of competence and control, making you feel that the situation, however bad, is manageable with them involved. This calmness is not passive. It is an active discipline of managing your internal reactions so that your external response is effective. It tells everyone around you that you are governed by reason, not by fleeting emotions. So, what is your typical emotional response when conflict arises? Do you feel the heat of anger flash, the cold grip of anxiety? Now consider how a Stoic might approach it differently. They would pause, recognize the emotion as a mere first impression, and then choose a more powerful, more constructive path forward. This conscious choice to be undisturbed is what quietly reshapes your reputation from being volatile to being utterly dependable. Stoic philosophers placed reason and communication at the very center of a virtuous life. Yet they understood that genuine communication depends far more on how we listen than on how we speak. This brings us to the fourth mental habit, the art of listening to understand. It is an active practice of empathy, a quiet discipline where you set aside your own internal monologue to fully receive what another person is sharing. You have already heard the wisdom of Epictetus, who reminded us we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. True listening is the practical application of that design. It means hearing not just the words, but the intent behind them, the emotion coloring them, and the unspoken need they may reveal. Most of us listen with a hidden agenda. We are waiting for a pause, not to understand, but to insert our own opinion, to share a similar story that shifts the focus back to us. This is listening to reply. It turns a conversation into a subtle competition. Now picture a different kind of exchange. A friend is describing a difficult problem at work. In the first scenario, you listen for a few seconds before you jump in with, "Oh, I know exactly how you feel. Let me tell you what happened to me last month." The conversation quickly becomes about your experience. In the second scenario, you remain quiet. You offer your full attention. You ask a simple, clarifying question like, "What was the most frustrating part of that for you?" You resist the urge to one-up their story or immediately solve their problem. The feeling in that second conversation is entirely different. The person speaking feels truly heard and valued. They walk away not necessarily with a solution, but with the profound sense that they matter. Your reputation in their eyes transforms. You are no longer just another voice in the crowd, but a person of rare wisdom and depth, someone who can be trusted with what is important. For your next conversation, I challenge you to a small experiment. Make your only goal to listen. Do not offer advice unless it is explicitly asked for. Do not interject with your own similar story. Simply be present and seek to understand the world from their perspective, just for a few minutes. Notice how the dynamic shifts and observe the quiet respect that this simple, focused attention earns you. What if making yourself slightly uncomfortable on purpose was the key to being seen as unshakable? This is the counterintuitive heart of the fifth mental habit, the practice of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics were not masochists, they were pragmatic architects of their own character. They understood that a life of pure ease makes the soul soft and entitled, priming us to complain at the slightest inconvenience. To build a reputation for resilience, you must first build a resilient mind, and that requires training. Seneca, in his letters, advised his friend Lucilius to periodically practice poverty. He would set aside a few days to live on the cheapest of food and wear his roughest clothes. Why would a wealthy man do this? It was not to punish himself, but to remind his own mind that true happiness does not reside in external comforts. By voluntarily experiencing a small lack, he inoculated himself against the fear of losing his wealth, and more importantly, he cultivated a profound gratitude for what he already had. This practice transforms your entire demeanor. When a genuine hardship strikes, like a project deadline moving up or a travel plan falling through, you do not react with the same level of panic or complaint as everyone else. You have already trained for this. You have sat with minor discomfort and found that you are still okay. This inner fortitude becomes visible to others. They see you as the person who does not buckle or gripe when things get tough. You become the go-to person for difficult tasks because your reputation precedes you. The applications are simple and deeply personal. It could be taking a cold shower for the final minute of your morning routine, consciously skipping a meal to understand the sensation of hunger, or choosing to walk for 45 minutes instead of taking the car. The goal is not to inflict suffering, but to prove to yourself that you are stronger than your cravings for constant comfort. This week, choose one small, voluntary discomfort to practice. It might be turning off the heating in your car for a short drive or resisting the urge to check your phone while waiting in a line. Notice the initial resistance, and then notice the quiet confidence that follows when you realize you are in control. That small victory over ease is a silent declaration that you are building a character others can rely on, no matter the circumstances. A significant portion of drama and wasted energy comes from being invested in things that are not your business. This is not a call to indifference, but a strategic redirection of your most precious resource, your attention. The Stoics built their entire philosophy on a simple but profound distinction: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus opens his Enchiridion with it, stating that some things are up to us and some things are not. Our own judgments, our impulses, our desires, and our actions are up to us. Everything else, from our reputation to our health, to what other people say and do, is not fully under our command. Minding your own business, in the Stoic sense, means ruthlessly focusing on that first category. the inner citadel of your own mind and choices. When you stop concerning yourself with the gossip in the office, the political opinions of a distant relative, or the unfair advantage you think a rival received, you are not being apathetic. You are being efficient. You are channeling all that saved mental energy into the one arena where you have absolute authority, your own character and your own work. Think of two people reacting to the same event, a colleague receiving a promotion they may not seem to deserve. The first person spends their afternoon dissecting the decision with others, speculating about favoritism, and feeding their own resentment. Their energy is poured into a vessel with a hole in it, and they end the day drained and bitter, having accomplished nothing. The second person acknowledges the event, accepts it as outside their control, and turns their focus inward. They ask themselves what skills they can develop to be a stronger candidate next time. They use the event as fuel for their own growth. The difference in reputation is stark. The first person becomes associated with gossip and negativity. The second earns a reputation for focus, integrity, and quiet self-improvement. They are seen as someone who is too busy building their own life to tear down anyone else's. So take a moment and make a quick mental list. What are 3 things you are currently worried or upset about? Now, with brutal honesty, categorize them. Are they within your complete control, or are they ultimately in the hands of other people, chance, or the future? For those outside your control, what would happen if you simply released your mental grip on them and reinvested that energy into your own judgments and your very next action? Words are not just sounds we make, they are the very substance of our character made audible. Each sentence you speak either fortifies or erodes the trust others place in you. This brings us to the 7th mental habit, the discipline of precise speech. The Stoics saw speaking as a sacred act, one that must be governed by the virtues of wisdom and justice. They advocated for a simple but demanding filter for every word, asking if it is true, if it is necessary, and if it is kind. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that you should let no word escape your lips that is not both beneficial and true. He was not just advising honesty, but a profound economy of language, where silence is preferred over anything less than essential and constructive. When your speech is vague or excessive, it creates a fog of uncertainty. People are left to guess your true meaning or intention, and trust cannot grow in such soil. Harsh words, even if true, can poison a relationship and destroy your reputation for fairness. But when your words are clear, concise, and honest, they become pillars of reliability. Think of a time you had to deliver bad news, perhaps a mistake you made at work. One approach is to ramble, to layer on excuses and justifications, to minimize your own role. The words are many, but their meaning is murky. The listener is left with the impression of evasion. Now picture a different response. You state the facts directly without theatrical apology. You say, "I made an error on the project report, and it has caused a delay. I am taking these specific steps to correct it." The words are few, but they are heavy with accountability and clarity. The person hearing this, while perhaps disappointed with the mistake, cannot help but respect the character of the person admitting it. They see someone who is trustworthy precisely because they do not hide from the truth. Take a moment and think back to a conversation you had earlier today. Play it back in your mind. Of the words you chose to speak, how many passed that 3-part test? Were they all true? Were they all necessary to convey your meaning? And finally, were they spoken with an underlying kindness, even when delivering a difficult message? This is not about becoming silent, but about making every word you do speak count toward building a reputation of unwavering integrity. Your current problem seems immense, filling your entire field of vision. Now picture it from the vantage point of a satellite looking down on the spinning Earth. From there, the city is a mere patchwork of gray and green, and your specific location is an invisible dot. This is the essence of the eighth mental habit, embracing the view from above. It is a powerful Stoic meditation designed to shrink your ego and your anxieties down to their true, manageable size. Marcus Aurelius constantly practiced this, reminding himself to frequently contemplate the whole of time and the vastness of the universe. He would consider his own life as but a single, brief flicker in an unimaginably long history. This was not meant to make his life feel insignificant, but to free it from the weight of self-importance. When you feel a flash of anger because someone cut you off in traffic, the view from above reveals a tiny vehicle among millions, moving along a thin ribbon of road on a giant planet. The transgression has not changed the orbit of the Earth. Your irritation, while real, is now contextualized by the sheer scale of existence. This shift in perspective does not solve the traffic jam, but it completely transforms your relationship to it, preventing a minor annoyance from ruining your hour. The same principle applies to a professional setback. That project you worked on for months that was just cancelled feels like a personal catastrophe. But from the cosmic perspective, it is one event in a long career, on one day in a long life, on one planet in an infinite cosmos. This is not about dismissing your efforts, but about seeing them within a grander tapestry. This habit quietly reshapes your reputation because it fosters a profound, visible calm. People who practice this do not get easily flustered by small dramas. They seem to possess a deeper wisdom, an understanding that most of what we fight over is incredibly small when seen from a sufficient height. The next time a problem feels overwhelming, pause for just 30 seconds and perform this simple exercise. Zoom out in your mind, see your street, your city, your country, the continent, the whole blue marble of Earth hanging in the black silence of space. Then bring your focus back to your problem. Notice how its power to dominate your emotions has lessened, and feel the quiet humility that replaces it. This practice is not about pessimism, it is about building an inner fortress of calm. The Stoics called it Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. It is a deliberate exercise where you calmly and rationally envision potential challenges or setbacks before they occur. You are not worrying, you are rehearsing. Seneca argued that the person who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes the sting out of them when they arrive. By mentally walking through what could go wrong, you strip the event of its element of surprise and its emotional shock value. When a real crisis then emerges, you do not freeze or panic. You have already been here in your mind. You have already considered the paths forward. Your response becomes measured, competent, and effective. This calm competence in the face of difficulty is what inspires profound confidence in others. They see you not as someone who is simply lucky, but as someone who is prepared for anything. Think about a difficult conversation you need to have, perhaps with a family member or a colleague. Instead of dreading it and hoping for the best, you sit down for 5 minutes and premeditate. You visualize the conversation going poorly. You imagine them reacting with anger or dismissal. Then you calmly plan your response. You decide that you will not raise your voice, that you will listen, and that you will restate your point with clarity and respect. When you actually have that conversation, the other person's emotional reaction does not throw you. You have already navigated this turbulent water in the safety of your own mind. The same applies to a potential project failure. By considering it beforehand, you are not inviting failure, you are disarming it. You are preparing your mind to see it not as a catastrophe, but as a manageable event with solutions and lessons. So take a moment and bring to mind one event you are apprehensive about in the coming week. Now close your eyes and walk through the worst-case scenario with a stoic calm. See yourself meeting that challenge not with fear, but with steady resolve. How does that mental preparation change your feeling of readiness for what is to come? Complaining is a habit, so is thankfulness. One quietly erodes your reputation, the other builds it. This 10th mental habit is the discipline of making gratitude your default setting. The Stoics understood that thankfulness is not a passive emotion that occasionally visits you when things go your way. It is an active, daily practice of directing your attention toward what you possess, rather than fixating on what is missing. Epictetus, born into slavery, knew more about hardship than most. He offered this profound insight, stating that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. He was pointing to a mental shift, a redirection of your focus that transforms your entire experience of the world. A person who practices this does not ignore life's difficulties. Instead, they consciously choose to anchor their mind in the good that remains, however small it may seem. Walk into any social gathering, and you will quickly sense two different types of energy. One person circulates, their conversation peppered with small grievances about the traffic, the weather, the service. They are a vortex of minor complaints, and while people may listen politely, they often find reasons to move on. Their reputation becomes one of constant dissatisfaction. Then there is the other person. They might mention the same traffic, but they follow it with a comment about the interesting podcast they listened to while stuck. They acknowledge the imperfect weather but express genuine thanks for the warmth of the company and the roof overhead. People are drawn to this person. Their presence feels light and energizing. This is not a performance of false positivity. It is the visible result of a mind trained to seek out and appreciate what is good. This consistent focus on sufficiency rather than lack makes you a source of strength and optimism. Others begin to see you as grounded and resourceful, someone who makes the best of any situation. The practice itself is simple, yet its effects are deep. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to begin each morning not by checking your phone, but by writing down 3 specific things for which you are genuinely grateful. It could be the comfort of your bed, the taste of your coffee, the loyalty of a pet, or the simple fact that you have air to breathe. The subject does not need to be grand. The power is in the consistent act of noticing and naming these gifts. This daily ritual rewires your brain's default pathways. It builds a foundation of appreciation that remains steady even when your day becomes challenging. When you operate from this foundation, your interactions are colored by a quiet contentment. People feel this. They trust a person who is not perpetually chasing the next thing, but who can find deep value in what is already here. Your reputation quietly transforms from someone who is never quite satisfied to someone who possesses a rare and resilient gratitude. You cannot control what happens to you, but you alone control what story you tell yourself about it. This is the quiet power of the 11th mental habit, taking responsibility for your interpretations. The core Stoic insight is that events themselves are neutral, empty vessels waiting for us to fill them with meaning. It is not the criticism from your boss or the sudden rainstorm that ruins your afternoon. It is the judgment you attach to it, the narrative you instantly construct. Epictetus put it with unflinching clarity, stating that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. When you internalize this, you stop being a victim of circumstance and become the author of your response. This habit makes you appear incredibly resilient because you are. You are no longer at the mercy of external events for your inner peace. Consider 2 colleagues receiving the exact same critical feedback on a presentation. The first person immediately tells themselves a story of persecution and inadequacy. They think, my manager dislikes me and is trying to undermine my confidence. This interpretation breeds resentment, defensiveness, and a strained working relationship. the second person hears the same words and chooses a different, more empowering story. They think, this is valuable data to help me improve my skills. My manager is investing in my growth by being this direct. This interpretation leads to gratitude, a proactive plan for improvement, and a reputation for being coachable and mentally tough. The event was identical, but the internal story dictated the entire outcome. The person who masters this does not walk around with a fake smile, pretending everything is wonderful. They simply refuse to add a layer of unnecessary suffering on top of a neutral fact. They meet a flat tire with the calm assessment of a problem to be solved, not a cosmic indictment of their entire day. So think of a minor annoyance that irritated you recently, perhaps a long line at the grocery store or a thoughtless comment from a stranger. Now consciously reframe that event. What neutral fact can you extract from it? The line is long, that is a fact. The comment was made, that is a fact. Now, what is a more constructive or at least a less emotionally charged story you could tell yourself about it? That the delay gives you a quiet moment to pause, or that the stranger's remark says everything about their inner state and nothing about your worth. This single act of reinterpreting the world is what builds a reputation as an unshakable, self-possessed individual. The most transformative improvements often happen in silence, long after the day is done. This 12th habit is the practice of the evening review, a structured self-examination that the Stoics considered essential for growth. Seneca wrote in his letters about his own nightly ritual, where he would question his own soul. What evils have you cured today? What vices have you resisted? In what way are you better? This was not an exercise in self-criticism, but a calm and honest audit of his own judgments and actions. He understood that a reputation for integrity in the world begins with a private commitment to truth within yourself. When you consistently align your actions with your stated values, that consistency becomes your character, visible to everyone you meet. The process itself is beautifully simple. Find just 5 quiet minutes at the end of your day. Ask yourself 3 direct questions. First, what did I do well today? Acknowledge the moments you acted with patience, courage, or kindness. Second, and this requires the most honesty, where did I fall short of my own principles? Did I speak harshly? Did I act out of envy or fear? The goal is not to punish yourself, but to see the misstep clearly, like a navigator correcting a course by a single degree. Third, and most importantly, how can I do better tomorrow? This turns reflection into a plan for action. Perhaps you resolve to listen more attentively in your morning meeting, or to pause for 3 breaths before responding to a provocation. This quiet, nightly realignment is what builds an unshakable core. People may not see the ritual itself, but they will see its results in the person who grows more consistent, more principled, and more trustworthy with each passing week. Your reputation becomes a mirror of this inner work. For the next 3 nights, I challenge you to this 5-minute practice. Sit with a notebook and without judgment, conduct your own audit. What small shift in your daily conduct might this simple habit reveal? We stress over outcomes we can never guarantee, while neglecting the effort we can fully control. This obsession with results is a primary source of modern anxiety, and the Stoics offered a powerful antidote by shifting our entire focus to the quality of our actions. The 13th mental habit is to commit to the process, not the prize. Your reputation for diligence and integrity is not built on your wins and losses, which are often subject to chance, but on the unwavering consistency of your effort, which is yours alone to command. The philosopher Epictetus illustrated this with the famous analogy of an archer. A skilled archer does everything within their power. They select the best arrow, they train their body for strength and stability, they take careful aim, and they release the bowstring with a smooth, controlled motion. That is where their responsibility ends. A sudden gust of wind, the movement of the target, these are beyond their control. The Stoic archer's goal, therefore, is not to hit the bullseye, but to execute a perfect shot. Whether the arrow actually strikes the target is a matter of indifference, something to be accepted with grace. This is the essence of focusing on what is up to us. When you apply this to your own life, you begin to build a reputation of profound reliability. People see that you are not swayed by success or failure. They see a person who shows up and does the work with excellence, regardless of the potential reward. Your value is no longer tied to an unpredictable outcome, but is rooted in the rock-solid certainty of your own disciplined effort. Think of preparing for a major presentation. You can spend days researching, crafting a clear narrative, and rehearsing your delivery. You can control the depth of your preparation and the clarity of your communication. You cannot control a key decision maker having a bad day, a technical glitch with the projector, or a competitor presenting a slightly more appealing idea. If your focus is solely on winning the approval or securing the deal, you set yourself up for anxiety during the presentation and potential despair if it fails. But if your focus is on delivering the most valuable, well-articulated presentation you are capable of, you walk into that room with a quiet confidence. You have already succeeded in the only arena that truly matters, the arena of your own virtuous action. The outcome, whatever it may be, is then met with equanimity. What is one important goal you are working toward right now? Now, consciously shift your entire mental energy away from the desired result. Pour all of that intention into the quality of your very next effort. Dedicate yourself completely to the process and watch as the anxiety about the future quietly dissolves, replaced by the quiet power of a commitment you can always keep. Deep within your mind, you can construct a fortress no external storm can breach. This is the Stoic practice of cultivating your inner citadel, a sanctuary of core principles that remains untouched by the chaos of outside events. Marcus Aurelius frequently meditated on this idea, describing your soul as a citadel that must be kept tranquil and fortified from within. He was not talking about building walls to hide from the world, but about creating an unassailable center of gravity for your character. When your sense of worth and purpose is anchored here, in this inner stronghold, the opinions and criticisms of others lose their power to destabilize you. Your confidence ceases to be something you must project and instead becomes something you simply possess, an aura of unshakable principle that others can feel. Imagine a leader facing a room of skeptical stakeholders. A proposal they have championed is met with sharp public criticism. One person whose self-worth is tied to approval might become defensive, their voice wavering as they scramble to please every critic. Their reaction broadcasts insecurity. Another leader who has built their inner citadel listens to the same critiques. Their posture remains relaxed, their gaze steady. They acknowledge the points raised, but their responses are guided by the core principles of their proposal: clarity, long-term benefit, integrity, not by a desperate need to be liked. They do not need the room to validate them because they are already secure in their own reasoned judgment. This quiet steadiness commands a different kind of respect, one born from the clear perception of someone who cannot be easily swayed or broken. So what is the one core principle that forms a pillar of your own inner fortress? Is it a commitment to honesty, no matter the cost, a dedication to treating everyone with fundamental respect? Identify that single, non-negotiable value. When you feel uncertain or buffeted by external pressures, you can retreat to this inner citadel and ask one simple question. Does my next action strengthen this pillar, or does it weaken its foundations? Your choice in that quiet moment determines the resilience of your entire reputation. True kindness leaves no forwarding address for gratitude. It is a silent transaction where the act itself is the entire reward, a principle the Stoics called philanthropy, the love of humanity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, and that to act against one another is contrary to nature. The duty to be helpful is not a suggestion, it is a fundamental expression of our rational design. When you help someone because it is the right thing to do, with no expectation of a returned favor or public acknowledgement, your actions carry a unique and undeniable weight. This is the 15th mental habit, the practice of kindness without expectation. Your reputation becomes one of authentic goodness because your behavior is consistent, not performative. People instinctively sense when a favor comes with invisible strings attached and they pull away. But when your kindness is given freely, it builds a foundation of trust that is both deep and unshakable. Consider a scenario where you discover a competitor in your field is struggling with a technical problem you know how to solve. The transactional mind would see an opportunity to let them falter, to gain a small advantage. The Stoic mind sees a fellow human in need and a chance to fulfill a universal duty. Sending them a brief, anonymous note with the solution asks for nothing. It does not build your social media following or win you immediate praise. What it does build, however, is an inner integrity that cannot be faked, and over time, this consistency paints your character in the minds of others with the most durable of pigments. This week, perform one small act of kindness that must remain entirely anonymous. It could be leaving a positive note for a stranger to find, paying for the coffee of the person behind you in line without them knowing, or quietly completing a tedious task for a colleague without claiming credit. Notice the quiet satisfaction that arises not from their reaction, but from the simple knowledge that you acted in alignment with your nature. This silent commitment to goodwill, repeated over time, is what quietly reshapes your reputation into that of a person of profound and genuine character. Resentment towards our own history is a weight we were never meant to carry. The 16th mental habit is the ultimate mindset shift, the practice of embracing Amor Fati, the love of fate. This is not passive resignation, but an active, joyful embrace of every single event, every twist and turn, as if you had chosen it yourself for your own benefit. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Your spirit can be that fire, transforming every obstacle, every failure, every piece of bad luck into fuel for your own growth and strength. When you internalize this, your entire energy shifts. You stop fighting reality and start working with it, which makes you appear incredibly resourceful and unbreakably optimistic. You are no longer a victim of your story, but its enthusiastic author. Think of a professional failure you have experienced, perhaps a business venture that did not succeed or a job you did not get. The conventional reaction is disappointment, maybe even shame. You see it as a stain on your record. Now apply Amor Fati. Look at that same event and love it for what it taught you. Love it for the resilience it forced you to develop. Love it for closing a door that would have led you down a less fulfilling path, making room for the right opportunity to arrive. That failed business taught you crucial lessons about finance and marketing that your success could never have revealed. That rejected job application steered you away from a toxic culture and toward a role that was a perfect fit for your skills. The event itself does not change, but your relationship to it is utterly transformed. This is the secret to a reputation for boundless resilience. People see someone who is not defeated by circumstance, but who is constantly being refined by it. They see a person who finds the advantage in every disadvantage. So bring to mind one past event you still quietly resent. It could be a personal betrayal, a financial loss, or a missed opportunity. Now, with the deliberate intention of a Stoic, search for just one reason to be grateful for its occurrence. What strength did it reveal in you that you did not know you possessed? What clearer boundary did it help you set? What deeper truth about life or people did it teach you? Finding that single thread of gratitude begins the process of weaving a new, more empowering story from the very fabric of your past. Silence is a true friend who never betrays, a Stoic maxim that reveals the 17th mental habit, the discipline of knowing when not to speak. In a world saturated with noise, the ability to hold your tongue is an act of profound strength and wisdom, a direct application of the virtue of temperance. This is not the silence of shyness or ignorance, but a strategic and deliberate quiet that serves a higher purpose. It prevents the careless words that can never be taken back. It creates the space for deeper listening, and it projects a confidence that does not need constant validation. Seneca warned that we should be particularly cautious when we are speaking in anger, for that is when we are most likely to say the very thing we will forever regret. He understood that guarded speech is the guardian of our inner peace and our outer reputation. Think of two people in a tense negotiation. One feels the pressure of every pause and rushes to fill it with chatter, conceding points they did not mean to or revealing their own anxieties. Their words become a leak, draining their position of its power. The other sits in the same quiet, perfectly comfortable, their calm demeanor signaling that they have nothing to prove and no need to placate. Their silence becomes a shield, forcing the other side to reveal more of their own hand. The person who masters this does not seem aloof, they seem self-possessed. Their words, when they do choose to speak, carry more weight because they are not diluted by constant noise. The next time you feel that familiar urge to fill a conversational void with nervous chatter, I challenge you to a simple exercise. Resist it. Commit to staying completely silent for a full 60 seconds. Listen to the sounds around you, observe the other person's body language, and simply breathe. You will discover that the world does not end in that minute of quiet. Instead, you reclaim a piece of your own power, building a reputation for thoughtfulness that speaks louder than any hurried words ever could. What if everyone is acting according to their own understanding of what is good? This is the central question behind the 18th mental habit, seeing the good in others. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all rational beings. It is the practice of looking past a person's irritating actions to find the shared spark of reason and the potential for virtue that resides within them. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his private writings, noting that we are all made for one another, and that to be angry with someone is to forget they are a kinsman, sharing in the same fragment of divine reason. This habit transforms your interactions from battles of will into opportunities for connection. When you believe, even as a working hypothesis, that a person is doing what they believe is right based on their own flawed perceptions and experiences, your anger softens into a more useful curiosity. You become a unifying presence because you are no longer meeting their energy with a matching force, but with a calm understanding that disarms conflict. Consider a difficult family member whose political views or life choices constantly frustrate you. Every conversation feels like a minefield. The conventional approach is to brace for impact, to prepare your counterarguments, to see them as an opponent. Now apply the lens of sympatheia. Before the next interaction, take a silent moment to consciously look for their positive intent. Perhaps their rigid opinions come from a deep, albeit misplaced, desire for order and security. Maybe their critical nature stems from a genuine worry for your well-being, expressed through a filter of their own anxiety. You are not being asked to agree with them, but to see the human being behind the behavior, a person who, like you, is simply trying to navigate the world with the mental tools they have. This shift does not magically resolve all differences, but it changes the entire emotional climate of the encounter. Your calm, non-combative presence becomes a mirror that reflects back their own agitation, often causing it to subside. Your reputation evolves from someone who is easily baited into arguments to someone who possesses a rare, calming wisdom. So bring to mind one person you currently struggle with. It could be a colleague, a neighbor, or that same family member. Now, with deliberate intention, list just one potential good quality or positive intention they might possess. What need or fear might be driving their most difficult behavior? This single act of mental reframing is the first step toward building a bridge where before there was only a wall. We take for granted what is always present until it is gone. This is the quiet truth behind the 19th mental habit, the practice of mental subtraction. It is a specific and powerful form of the premeditation of evils we explored earlier, but here the focus is not on preparing for future hardship. It is on awakening to the profound value of the blessings you already possess by consciously imagining their absence. The Stoic philosopher Seneca offered a beautiful and piercing piece of advice on this very subject. He wrote that we should conduct all our dealings with our friends, with our family, and with our possessions as if we might one day lose them. He was not teaching us to live in fear of loss, but to live in a constant state of grateful appreciation. By mentally rehearsing the absence of what we hold dear, we strip away the veil of familiarity and see these gifts with fresh eyes. The goal is to feel the value of something before it is taken away, not after. Think about the simple, miraculous luxury of clean running water. It flows from a tap with a simple turn of your wrist, an everyday magic so common we barely notice it. Now mentally subtract it. Picture the pipes freezing, the well running dry. Imagine the sheer effort required to haul water for drinking, for cooking, for cleaning. Suddenly, that mundane stream from the faucet transforms into a treasure. The same exercise applies to the people in your life. Consider your closest friend. Now imagine your world without their counsel, their laughter, their steady presence. Feel, for just a moment, the void that would be left behind. This momentary mental subtraction is not morbid. It is an act of emotional alchemy that transforms casual ownership into deep, felt gratitude. When you practice this, your entire demeanor begins to shift. The sense of entitlement that often accompanies a comfortable life begins to dissolve, replaced by a humble and visible appreciation. You become someone who does not take things or people for granted, and others feel that genuine thankfulness in your presence. So here is a small challenge for this very day. Choose one blessing you rely upon without a second thought. It could be the electricity that powers your home, the reliable car in your driveway, or the health of your own body. For the next 60 seconds, close your eyes and vividly imagine it is gone. What would your day be like without it? What struggles would you face? Then, open your eyes and allow the feeling of its return to wash over you. Notice how its value has been magnified not by any change in the object itself, but by a simple shift in your own perception. This is how you build a reputation for a gratitude that is not just spoken, but deeply and authentically lived. Integrity is your private self meeting your public life without apology. This 20th habit is the commitment to act with consistent integrity, where your principles are not just ideals you admire, but the invisible architecture of your every choice. For the Stoic, virtue is the only true good, and this means that the alignment between what you think in silence and what you do in the open is everything. It is who you are when you are certain no one will ever know. A reputation for trustworthiness is not built in a single grand gesture, but brick by brick through countless small, consistent acts of honesty. The philosopher Epictetus cut to the heart of the matter, teaching that your character is your fate. He was not concerned with how you were perceived, but with the unshakable truth of who you had chosen to become. Your reputation is merely a shadow cast by the solid object of your character. When that character is built with integrity, the shadow it casts is one of profound reliability. Imagine walking down a quiet street and spotting a wallet on the pavement. You glance inside and see a significant amount of cash alongside identification cards. There are no witnesses, no cameras pointing in your direction. The easy, consequence-free path is to pocket the cash and discard the rest. The path of integrity, however, is not determined by the presence of an audience. It is guided by a single question: is this action aligned with my nature as an honest person? Returning the wallet intact, every bill still in place, is a silent contract you honor with yourself. That small act deposits another brick into the foundation of your own self-respect. People may never hear about this specific event, but the person who consistently makes these choices carries themselves differently. They exude a quality of trustworthiness that others sense instinctively. Their word becomes a guarantee because their private and public selves are one and the same. So where does a gap exist between your private actions and your public values? Perhaps you advocate for health but consistently make poor dietary choices when alone. Maybe you present yourself as meticulously organized, yet your personal spaces are in disarray. Identify just one small, specific area where your private behavior does not yet match the person you claim to be. What is one minor adjustment you could make today to begin closing that gap, to ensure that the person you are in the dark is the same one everyone sees in the light? A profound paradox lies at the heart of a truly joyful life: the deliberate contemplation of loss. This 21st mental habit returns us to the practice of premeditatio malorum, but with a focus not on preparing for hardship, but on unlocking a deeper, richer appreciation for the present. It is negative visualization used as a tool for savoring, a way to actively intensify your experience of the good that is already here. Seneca, in his letters, urged his readers to remember that all things mortal are poised on the edge of a razor, and that life is more brightly illuminated by the continual contemplation of its end. He was not being morbid. He was offering a key to unlock a more vibrant existence. By consciously imagining the absence of a person, a pleasure, or a period of our lives, we strip away the dulling film of habit and see it with the fresh, aching clarity we would have if it were suddenly gone. This mental act transforms ordinary moments into gifts we actively receive, rather than blessings we passively consume. The result is a visible energy of contentment, a person who is fully present because they understand the temporary nature of this very moment. Picture yourself on a long-awaited vacation, standing on a beautiful beach at sunset. The conventional approach is to take a photo and move on, the mind already drifting to dinner plans. Now apply negative visualization in that exact instant. Close your eyes for just a few seconds and imagine the vacation is over. You are back at your desk, the gray light of a Monday morning filtering through the window, the memory of this warm sand and brilliant sky already feeling distant. Now open your eyes. The colors will seem more vivid, the sound of the waves more precious, the feel of the breeze more immediate. You have not spoiled the moment, you have deepened it by confronting its fleeting nature. This practice can be applied to the simplest of daily pleasures. As you sit down to a favorite meal, pause for a heartbeat and imagine the plate is empty, the food is gone, and your hunger remains. Then take that first bite with your full attention, or while spending time with someone you love, briefly picture your life without their presence in the room. The conversation that follows will be imbued with a new level of attention and gratitude. So find one current pleasure in your day, something you might normally rush through. It could be your morning coffee, the comfort of your favorite chair, or a few minutes of quiet before the day begins. For just 30 seconds, perform this mental subtraction. See it gone, then return to it fully, and notice how the experience has been transformed from a routine into a ritual of appreciation. The need for constant approval is a form of slavery. It chains your sense of self-worth to the shifting, unpredictable winds of other people's moods and judgments. The 20-second mental habit offers the key to this lock, cultivating a profound apathy towards both praise and blame. For the Stoic, this is not about becoming cold or unfeeling, but about achieving a state of inner freedom where your actions are guided by principle, not by the desire for a reward or the fear of a reprimand. Your value becomes a fact you know about yourself, not a verdict you wait for from the world. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly in his private meditations, writing that you have no power over any external event, not even over another person's praise. He was reminding himself that the applause of a crowd is as fleeting as the sound itself, and building your life upon it is like building a house on sand. When you internalize this, your entire demeanor shifts. You stop performing for an audience and start acting from a deep, internal compass. Think of two artists unveiling their work. The first is desperate for acclaim, their eyes scanning the room for approving nods, their mood soaring or crashing with each piece of feedback. They seem fragile, their confidence borrowed from the crowd. The second artist stands quietly, their satisfaction drawn from the knowledge that they created something true to their own vision. They receive both praise and criticism with the same calm gratitude, because neither one alters their core belief in the work itself. Who commands more respect? The one whose stability is so clearly independent of external validation. This is how you build a reputation for being principled, not fickle. People learn that your yes means yes and your no means no, because your convictions are not for sale to the highest bidder of praise. Can you recall the last time a piece of criticism stung you for days, or a compliment inflated your ego for hours? Now consider how a Stoic would view that same event. They would see the criticism as mere data, perhaps useful for improvement, but utterly powerless to define their worth. They would receive the praise with grace, but see it as a pleasant sound that changes nothing about the essential quality of their character. This emotional independence is the quiet foundation of a reputation that cannot be shaken. There is a tiny, almost imperceptible gap between what happens to you and how you react. This 23rd habit is the practice of consciously widening that gap, creating a mindful transition between stimulus and response. The Stoics called this the discipline of withholding assent. Your mind is constantly bombarded with first impressions, immediate judgments about events that scream for your belief and your immediate action. But you are not obligated to obey. You can, in that sliver of a second, pause and choose not to assent to the initial, often emotional, interpretation. You insert a moment of reason between the spark and the explosion. This single habit is the difference between a reputation for volatility and one for profound level-headedness. It is in that brief pause that your character is truly forged. Consider the familiar sting of a critical email arriving in your inbox. The first impression is a flash of heat, a defensive narrative forming instantly. The impulsive response is to fire back a reply, to justify, to counterattack. Now apply the mindful transition. Before your fingers even touch the keyboard, you commit to one single, deliberate breath. In and out, that is all. In the space of that one breath, the initial heat begins to dissipate. Your higher reasoning, your proherses as Epictetus termed it, has a chance to engage. You can now ask a different set of questions. Is my initial interpretation the only one possible? What is the most constructive way to address the core concern here? The email you then craft will be measured, professional, and solution-oriented. The person who receives it sees not reactivity, but thoughtful engagement. This practice applies to every provocation, from a sharp word from a partner to a sudden change in your schedule. The mechanism is always the same. Feel the impulse to react, and then, with conscious intent, insert the pause. It is a mental airlock that prevents the vacuum of emotion from sucking you into a situation you will later regret. For your very next potentially reactive moment, I challenge you to this simple act. When the trigger comes, do nothing but take one full, conscious breath. Do not speak, do not type, do not decide. Just breathe into that space. Notice the power that floods back into your hands when you realize the reaction is not automatic, but a choice you are now prepared to make wisely. Your reputation is not a mask you wear, but the shadow cast by your inner character. This final piece brings all the others into a single, luminous focus. The ultimate Stoic goal, as defined by Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, is to live in agreement with nature. This sounds simple, but its meaning is profound. To live according to nature is to live virtuously and rationally, fulfilling your unique potential as a human being. Your nature is not to be ruled by chaotic passions, but by clear reason. It is to act with justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom. When your inner world is ordered by these principles, your outer world cannot help but reflect them. Your reputation then becomes an authentic echo of your soul, not a carefully managed performance. Think back through every habit we have explored, from the vigilant attention you bring to a conversation to the quiet resilience you show in hardship, from the fairness of your judgments to the integrity of your private actions. Each one is a single thread in the same tapestry. Each is a practical expression of living in agreement with your own rational nature. They are not separate tricks, but different facets of the same virtuous life. When you listen to understand, you are practicing justice. When you welcome hardship, you are exercising courage. When you speak with precision, you are embodying temperance. And when you conduct your evening review, you are pursuing wisdom. This harmonious alignment is what the world eventually sees and trusts. It is the source of a reputation that feels solid and real because it is built on the unshakable foundation of a coherent character. So what does living in agreement with nature look like for you on an ordinary Tuesday? It is the patience you choose in a long line, recognizing your shared humanity with everyone waiting. It is the honest work you do on a project, even when no one is watching. It is the kind word you offer without expectation, simply because it is the right thing to do. It is the calm acceptance of a plan that falls apart, seeing it as part of the natural flow of events rather than a personal offense. This is the quiet culmination of all this inner work, a life where your thoughts, your actions, and your reputation finally become one. These 24 mental habits are not a checklist to be completed, but a symphony to be conducted within your own mind. Each one, from the vigilant attention you pay to the present moment to the quiet dignity with which you accept your fate, reinforces the others. They are the individual threads woven together to create the unbreakable fabric of your character. This inner architecture, built day by day through conscious choice, is what the world eventually perceives as your reputation. You were never in control of that reputation itself, only of the judgments you form and the actions you take. The Stoic path is the ultimate redirection of energy from the external prize to the internal process. Marcus Aurelius left us with a guiding light for this very journey, writing that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Guard them well, for you are the sole guardian of the inner citadel from which all else flows. As you reflect on these practices, which one or two habits resonate most deeply with you right now? Is it the discipline of listening to understand, or perhaps the courageous embrace of voluntary discomfort? Your answer is the starting point, the first quiet step toward a life lived in agreement with nature. If this path of quiet strength and authentic respect calls to you, consider joining our community. Subscribe to continue this exploration, and together we can put these ancient truths into daily practice.